Well, for more on matters Iran, we're now joined via Skype by Professor Saeed Marandi, who's an Iranian academic and political analyst. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program. We last spoke before the election, and I think everybody pretty much predicted, and you said he was favourite as well, that Raisi would win. He did. What does that mean?
Political party in Iran boycotted the election. One thing that I would advise your viewers to do is to take any piece of news that comes from the Western media regarding Iran as suspect. Those organizations that are constantly boycotting Iran are all based in the United States and Europe, so they're not really Iranian, they're European and American. But I think it is significant because President Raisi, he has already stated that he will be tilting away from the West, and he will be moving closer towards the global South, non-Western countries. So that would include South Africa, that would include East Asia, China, Russia, Central Asia, Iran's neighbors. And if the United States and the Europeans want to improve relations with Iran, if they want to start behaving reasonably, then they can, and Iran will reciprocate. But Iran is no longer going to wait for the Americans and the Europeans. And American and European hostility towards Iran is proven every single day. Not only are we sanctioned, but today, as you may know, the Iranian website Press TV, the English website, has been taken by the FBI, and so have a host of other websites that are linked to Iran or the Palestinians. So the United States is not only sanctioning Iranians, but it's trying to prevent Iran and Iran's allies from even having a voice. So obviously the United States, which talks about democracy and freedom of speech, is being hypocritical and dishonest, because if there is free speech, then the Iranian English language TV channel should be able to function and be able to give an alternative worldview. So I think I think it's becoming clear by the day that the Americans are neither honest, nor are they showing goodwill to the Iranians. But we'll see with regards to the nuclear deal whether the Americans are going to uh, accept abiding by their commitments or not.
All right, we'll talk about the nuclear deal a bit more just now, but let's talk about the election. Would you say that it was a free and fair democratic expression of the will of the people in Iran?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Are the elections in the United States free and fair? The 50 states in the United States have laws that make it almost impossible for a viable third party to uh, take part in the national election. And only two candidates, one from the Democratic Party and one from the Republican Party, are allowed to debate on stage. No third party is allowed to debate on the stage with these two. And as many American intellectuals say, including Noam Chomsky, many years ago, the United States is basically a one-party system with two factions. And even in the Democratic Party in 2016, we saw from WikiLeaks, whose head is in jail, Julian Assange. He's the world's most famous political prisoner who's being held in London right now. WikiLeaks revealed that the Democratic Party colluded with Clinton so that Senator Sanders would lose the primaries. So the Democratic Party cheated, got away with it, and Julian Assange is in jail. So is that a democratic election when your choice is between
All right, but
two right-wing capitalist parties?
that's America, though. What about Iran? And I'm asking because this year we know that there was a lower voter turnout. I believe that in places like Tehran province, it was just 34% of eligible voters, and that's half of the previous elections. So less people voted this time around. What does that tell us?
Well, the reason why I pointed out the Americans is that the Americans were criticizing the Iranian elections. If a 49% turnout is an issue and it questions Iran's legitimacy, well, 2 days ago, the French had very important regional elections, and they were the lowest in French contemporary history. Only 32% of the French participated, and 20% of young people participated. So is France illegitimate now? We have to keep in mind
Yeah, but
that
European voting trends in America, they've been low for a long period of time. Let's take Tehran province. It's half from last time. So in between one election to the next, it's dropped by 50%. That's significant.
no, actually, the province of Tehran has not decreased from the last time. The last election was the parliamentary elections, and they were 2 days after coronavirus was discovered in Iran. And because of that, large numbers of people did not vote. In the recent elections, many people didn't vote because of the coronavirus. And according to polls, between 10 to 12% of Iranians said they're not going to vote because of the coronavirus. And you know that Iran has a particularly bad problem with the virus because it's sanctioned. The Americans blocked Iran from importing ventilators, masks, test kits. Uh, they block Iran from importing vaccines. Then the Iranians decided to develop their own vaccine. The Americans sanctioned the companies that are developing the vaccines. So, the Americans weaponized the coronavirus. That hurt the economy even further. So people, because of the coronavirus, some didn't come out, some because of the severe economic problems. The province that was hit the hardest uh, by the coronavirus was Tehran, the capital, because it's the commercial center of the country. So many people have been devastated by the Americans. Obviously, that's going to have an effect on voter turnout. So these are not normal conditions. Iran is being sanctioned. The coronavirus is being weaponized against the country. And obviously, the turnout in Tehran is low. But the turnout in Tehran is not lower than what it was during the last parliamentary elections.
All
So
right.
again, what I'm saying is that while the Iranian democracy is not ideal, but Iran has elections. They are meaningful elections. Elections. They have debates. The debates were hard hitting. But does Saudi Arabia have elections? Does Bahrain have elections? Does the Emirates have elections? Do American allies in the region have elections? Do the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, are they allowed to have self-govern?
All right.
Are
Okay,
the
so
and so on.
I think you're basically saying that this was a good election then under the circumstances. Let's talk about the
An
nuclear.
acceptable
Yeah,
election,
an acceptable
not an
election.
ideal election.
Okay, let's talk about this nuclear deal now. President Raisi says he's not going to meet Joe Biden. If Joe Biden does lift all the remaining sanctions, is that not room to perhaps sit together?
Biden is imposing sanctions on Iranians and killing people. He's murdering people. As we speak, he is implementing the maximum pressure campaign of Trump. Why should the Iranian president speak to such a creature? Why should the Iranian president talk to someone who's trying to strangle women and children in this society? There's no reason for Iran to do so. If the Americans want, they can implement the JCPOA and the Iranians will reciprocate. But we don't need to talk to the Americans. The Americans, if they want to talk to us, they have to change their behavior. Their behavior towards Iranians are despicable. They are, I'm hearing one of your colleagues.
All right, try and ignore
One of
them
your
if that's possible. I think they'll keep quiet now.
So the Americans are waging war on the Iranians. They are waging war on women and children. The sanctions that the Americans have imposed on Iranians are just as bad as if they were bombing the country. It's just silence death. When people have cancer and they can't find their medicine, when people lose their jobs because factories are shut down and their families are broken, when people, because of the fall of the Iranian currency due to the sanctions, cannot purchase enough food or they cannot purchase expensive medicine, these are crimes against humanity. Why should the Iranian president show any interest in speaking to such a person? Does the Iranian president have a problem with speaking with the leaders of Argentina or South Africa or China or India or Russia? No, of course not, because these countries treat Iranians with respect. But why should he negotiate with speak with someone who is punishing women, innocent women and children?
All right, so if America is not at the table, what are the chances of success with the nuclear deal?
It depends. If the Americans are willing to remove the sanctions that impede the implementation of the nuclear deal, then the problem is solved. In fact, I think this itself is evidence that the Americans knew all along that they were lying about Iran's peaceful nuclear program. If they were really so concerned about Iran developing a nuclear weapon, why would they not want to implement the nuclear deal immediately? Why do they stonewall? As Iran's nuclear program advances right now as we speak, the Americans should be terrified, but they're not, because they know that the Iranian nuclear program does not have any military angle or does not have any military component to it. So what the Americans are doing is they're stonewalling. They want to keep some of the sanctions and let go of some other sanctions. The Iranians are saying, no, a deal is a deal. You commit yourself to your side of the bargain, and we commit ourselves to our side of the bargain. The issue is that the Iranians are behaving completely reasonably, but the Western media behaves as if it's Iran that's the problem. The United States surrounds Iran with military bases, yet Iran's missile defense capability is a problem. The Americans and their allies helped extremists in Syria. They created genocide in Yemen. They destroyed Libya. They've destroyed Iraq, Afghanistan. They helped the apartheid regime carry out genocide in Gaza, yet Iran's support for the Palestinian people, these are proxies. Hamas is a proxy of Iran, or the Yemeni people who are being strangled by the Saudis and their Western allies. The Yemeni people are Iranian proxies. The narrative of the West gives us an upside down version of reality.
Professor Marandi, always good talking to you. Your insights always appreciated. Thank you so much indeed for
Thank you.
joining us.